Let's see, from the big and silver screen to the small and flat screens of the world, actors have always demanded and sometimes commanded large and extravagant salaries, and today we're going to ask the question, are they worth it? Hello there everyone, and welcome back once again to RealScreenReviews.com. I am film critic Iacobucci, and today we start the discussion, are performers worth the millions of dollars that they make in front of the camera? This is a debate that I've heard people rage on about for years, and just about everyone has an opinion on this subject, but today I will look a little further into this debate and maybe give you a few examples that you probably did not know. Now, what started the idea of bringing this topic to my audience is when I read yesterday in The Hollywood Reporter that the cast of TV's Modern Family has just filed suit against 20th Century Fox Television, and the main issue is that they are claiming higher compensation from the TV studio. Now, it started with the 5 main cast members in Ty Burrell, Julie Bowen, Jesse Tyler, Eric Stonestreet, and Sofia Vergara. However, veteran TV funny man Ed O'Neill is said to be joining the plaintiffs in the very near future. From what I understand, it is pretty standard for performers to begin the renegotiation process come season 4 of a hit TV show. Cast members are usually signed to a 7-year deal, but as I said, usually around the 4th season, they will sit down and try to negotiate a better paycheck. It seems 20th Century Fox Television didn't want to hear very much from the cast of Modern Family, so now it has actually escalated to the point of legal action. Before I go any further, I will give you my answer to the question that I have posed to all of you out there. Are actors worth the paychecks that many expect and demand? Now, I will get into specifics in just a little bit, but my humble opinion is absolutely yes. The actors are more than worth what they demand from the studios, and most of the time, I don't even believe their demands to be in the least bit outrageous. I will start with the cast of Modern Family. Each of the original 5 actors has been paid about $65,000 per episode for the last 3 seasons, and only Ed O'Neill commanded a bigger paycheck at $105,000 per episode. Modern Family has not only been a hit show for 3 seasons, it's actually spawned 3 other television programs and produces 22 episodes per year. If you add up the salaries of the 6 performers, it comes out to $430,000 per episode, or $9.5 million a year. Last year alone, the advertising revenue from this show was $164 million, and to me, those numbers speak for themselves. Now, I know that there are other performers on the show, and I also know that there is a crew that helps produce this series, but it is without question these 6 individuals that people are tuning in to see. As much as it pains me to say this, anyone can hold the boom mic, anyone can sweep the floor, and almost all technical positions are most likely replaceable, but there's only one Ed O'Neill and there's only one Julie Bowen, and wow, is she hot. Taking it a step further, 20th Century Fox Television will make $1.5 million per episode when Modern Family goes into syndication, or $33 million per season. Now, you can times that by 4 seasons, and the studio is looking at another $132 million that the show will bring to them, and that's only until the syndication rights run out and they get to charge for the same product all over again. The actors, or as I like to commonly refer to them, the talent, more than deserve to be compensated in every way, shape, or form, and for 20th Century Fox to not do this is nothing but corporate greed. Now, this is not an isolated incident in the land of TV, or especially in the land of 20th Century Fox Television. Now, back in the 1990s, Fox TV was sued by both Alan Alda and David Duchovny, and that was for basically screwing them out of the deserved paychecks on the reruns of MASH and The X-Files. What 20th Century Fox Television did was to sell the syndication rights to these shows to their own cable channel of FX for a fraction of what other networks would have paid them. Cable channels the likes of USA, TBS, or TNT would have paid over $1 million an episode for these shows, but Fox sold them basically to themselves for $100,000 an episode. Now, I don't know if these are the exact figures, I'm just giving you an example. However, they then turned around and told Mr. Alda and Mr. Duchovny, well, we're only going to give you this much money because we didn't make that much selling them in syndication. They chose to undercut the show and undermine the talent, and then did their best to hold out on these gentlemen and not let them reap the well-deserved profits. These guys were not only the stars of these shows, they were writing, directing, and creative talent that brought millions of viewers to their couches week after week, and the driving force that made the shows successful in the first place. Everybody always talks about the cast of Friends, that they demanded $1 million per actor per episode, and you know what? At 22 million viewers a week, they should have been paid more than that, in my opinion. Donnie Most, Marion Ross, and other secondary cast members of the TV show Happy Days only recently settled for compensation that they were stiffed on going back to the 1970s. Their likeness was used on lunchboxes, board games, and many other forms of paraphernalia for years, and they never saw a dime of that money. Now, I will say that sometimes supporting cast members grow a big head and make demands that I don't believe are worth their ability. Unlike Alan Alda, some of the secondary characters of the TV show CSI did not show up for work on the first day of filming a few years back. George Eads and Georgia Fox skipped going to work because they felt that they were worth more than they were being paid. Now, in my opinion, shows like Law & Order and CSI work because of the stories being told and not because of the actors that are in them. Both of these television series have had a revolving door of cast members over the years, and both still retained a very wide audience regardless of who was on the screen. On a side note, I heard that both George Eads and Georgia Fox were fired from their jobs and came back to work after only taking a big pay cut because of their actions. Going all the way back to November 21st, 1980, actors have been fighting for their right to better compensation. I am referring, of course, to the worldwide slogan, "Who shot JR?" Now, the funny thing is that Dallas is actually the most successful new show of this summer, but back in the early 80s, it was a massive juggernaut of a TV show. Tens of millions of people tuned in week after week to see the power-hungry struggle of the TV family known as the Ewings, and of the ensemble cast, no one stood out more than Larry Hagman. His J.R. Ewing commanded a decade of viewership, and before coming back for that new season, the actor held out for what he referred to as a one-man strike. Larry Hagman said, "I knew that they didn't have a show without me, and I was going to play the JR card while I could." He demanded a $70,000 raise per episode, and after much debate, the network caved and gave in. Now, just to put it into perspective, the cost of a home in 1980 was, or the average cost of a home in 1980 was $62,000, but his talent in 1980 was definitely worth that price. This takes me to movie stars and the big screen. Once again, people always say that these actors are so greedy and they don't deserve the money that they are making, but they actually are not greedy, and yes, most big stars deserve all the money that they are getting. Pierce Brosnan was a successful television actor that had never really made it in feature films. He was supposed to play 007 in the 1980s, but couldn't get out of his Remington Steele contract, and because of that, the role went to Timothy Dalton instead. When he was offered the part of James Bond in the 1990s, he was paid $1 million to appear in the film GoldenEye. GoldenEye went on to not only become the most successful James Bond feature ever, the biggest reason that it did was because Pierce Brosnan was playing the part. He not only reinvented but reinvigorated the suave and debonair persona of everyone's favorite secret agent, and GoldenEye went on to make $353 million at the worldwide box office. The studio made $350 million and Pierce Brosnan made $1 million. I don't know about you out there, but that hardly seems fair to me. Pierce Brosnan then went on to demand $20 million for every James Bond film that he made after that, and righteously so. Tomorrow Never Dies made $333 million, The World Is Not Enough made $361 million, and Die Another Day topped out at a whopping $432 million. Now, added together, his 4 James Bond films made $1.5 billion, and he made $61 million. Think about it, he's more than worth that paycheck. And this $1.5 billion does not include DVD sales, pay-per-view revenue, or the money paid to the studio for the television rights. Once again, this is not greed, this is justifiable in every sense of the word. The last example that I will give you is that of Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, and Rupert Grint. I am talking, of course, about the stars of the Harry Potter films and how much money they received for the last 3. For the 6th film in the series, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, I believe the lead got $20 million and the 2 sidekicks got $10 million each. And for the final 2 features in this series, entitled The Deathly Hallows Parts 1 and 2, Radcliffe received $25 million each, and both Emma Watson and Rupert Grint got $15 million each for their time and effort. When it is all said and done, Warner Brothers Pictures dished out $150 million to these 3 young actors, and I will admit that sounds like a lot of money. However, the worldwide grosses of these three films brought in $3.2 billion, and in comparison, the paychecks received by these three actors is a fraction of the money that was made at the ticket window. It actually calculates out to 4.6%. In this specific instance, Warner Brothers painted themselves into a corner because you don't have a movie without these three performers, and you must cave and give them whatever they want. But also in this instance, we as the audience watched these kids grow up on screen, and not only were they perfect in these roles, they were believable, convincing, and most of all, they were Harry, Ron, and Hermione. Now, once again, I realize that big corporations make the product and pay to market such product, but in the end, the studios look at this as big business and are really interested in nothing more than the bottom line. The actors, or once again as I call them, the talent, absolutely and positively need to stick up for themselves, because if they didn't, the studios would pay them next to nothing and smile all the way to the bank. That's exactly what the studios used to do in the 1930s when they would sign an actor to a long-term contract. If they signed you to a 10-year deal and your movies were making money hand over fist, they would still pay you nothing and in turn keep all the profits for themselves. Then the tide turns a couple of decades later. Now everybody's crying foul on the part of the actor, and that just shouldn't be the case. I give all of the credit in the world to the cast of Modern Family and hope that they get righteously compensated going forward. Now, this is undoubtedly an opinionated discussion, and I very much welcome any opinions or thoughts below in the comment box. Please feel free to give me your view on whether you agree with what I'm saying or whether you think that actors are just greedy SOBs that live high on the hog. And remember, people, I'm not always right, but only when it comes to the movies, and thank you for your attention.